Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I'm old enough to remember the show, barely. When I was a child, a celebrity named Art Linkletter had a show on TV called Kids Say the Darndest Things. On the show, he invited precocious, talkative kids to be interviewed, and you never knew what they were going to say. Often, their naive approach to life, along with their open truth-telling, led to hilarious results. Well, we are doing something like that this week. I have a book on my shelf called Just Build the Ark and the Animals Will Come by David Heller, and in the book he gets kids to comment and react to various Bible stories. This week I'm sharing some of those, first to amuse us, and then second because some of them also open up meaningful things for us to consider. The question that Heller asked that we are going to look at today is one I had actually never considered. How did Adam and Eve spend an average day in the Garden of Eden? An 11-year-old girl named Joanna said, "I think they did yoga most days." An 8-year-old girl named Krista commented, "They played tag. It was simple enough to learn. Even a snake could play." Another one that may reach a little more deeply was a comment by another 8-year-old, Catherine, who remarked, "They drew pictures of God and colored them in with crayons they made out of vegetables. Most of the pictures of God came out green." Well, I guess that might be so if all you've got to make crayons out of are vegetables. Maybe everything looks green then. Nevertheless, Catherine makes a point that is far too commonplace in our world today. As she described God coming out green because that's what they had to picture God with, sometimes we do the same thing. Far too often we cling to the God we are comfortable with, a God who fits our vision of who and what God is supposed to be. We put God in the box of our imagination and keep God there, pretending to ourselves that we know God, that we know what God can and will do, that we have tamed God. And nothing could be further from the truth. We have a whole world of people who want to tell God who and what God can be, and who shape God in ways that are comfortable to them. They have a God who doesn't challenge them or convict them or call them to serve beyond their own comfort. They think God is like us and doesn't call us to anything different than what we already are. Far too often, instead of being created in God's image, we create God in our own image. God comes out looking green just like we expect God to. Of course, this isn't the way of things. God is God and we are not. God made us and God continually creates for us and in us, inviting us into fresh new worlds and opportunities and futures. Maybe we should dare to open the whole Crayola box to discover the vast wonder of all God is and all God calls us to be. Peggy, age 10, said, "Adam and Eve played bingo and the churches picked up on it later on." I'm not sure I want to go to her church. But more seriously, when asked what Adam and Eve did on an average day, Jerome, who was 9 years old, said, "They had deep talks about what they were there for. People have been trying to figure it out ever since." Wow. Jerome really has his finger on the pulse of our lives, doesn't he? What are we here for? There in Genesis, God gives us our vocation. We are to be stewards of God's creation and care for it. That means we are to care for our natural resources, but also to care for each other. In another place, the prophet Micah tells us that we are to do kindness, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And yet, Again, Jesus told us that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart and soul and mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. Those are the things we are here for. We are in a relationship with God, and our lives are as simple and as complicated as that. How do we live that out? Again, Jerome has it right. People have been trying to figure it out ever since Adam and Eve. May we be open to the God who is, not just the God we can imagine. May we live with and for God in all we are. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.